Hello, welcome back. I'm going to do a quick preview of Gameweek 363 this time, looking at the teams that I've focused on this week and where I'm putting all of my cards. We'll look at the priority lineups and see how we're going to lay it down this week. For me, what's on my mind coming into this week? One, rotation again. If you look at the fixture congestion for some of the top clubs in Argentina, it's pretty intense. They've been playing every single week, for the last couple and for the next couple as well, if they're involved in Copa Libertadores action. So, big part for me is trying to avoid DMPs. Had a pretty horrible week last week. Only ended up coming away with thresholds. So I want to try and get back in the car prizes this week, trying to play it safe, trying to avoid DMPs where possible. Also, I really want to win some super rares. I've not won a super rare in a few weeks, and I'm hoping that this week will be my chance to sort of continue building that super rare portfolio that I have within my gallery. Cap 240 is very attractive at the moment. I've managed to hit it the last 2 weeks. I've also got in Andre Hansen, a goalkeeper that can really help me hit it in the coming weeks as well. So I really want to continue prioritizing that, but for me, 240 is about hitting that threshold, and I'm trying to use 270 as a way of winning cards. So without further ado, let's have a little look at my Cap 270 team this week. So looking through it, what I've been trying to do is balance the teams that I do have available. I like to use Lanzalotta in America, so I don't really sort of consider him as a capped option. And my main choices are Kofi and Andre Hansen. For me, it's all about trying to make use of Kofi while I still have him available. Belgian season is coming to the end, so I'm really trying to make use of him, even though he does have quite a high L15 when we consider what we're trying to do. So that's what puts him in 270 over 240. Hansen is a 240 facilitator because he's on a sort of 37-point L15. Kofi's got a difficult fixture this weekend. It's also super, super important because it's against Standard Liège, who are a team that are competing with them for playoff 2. And why that is important is because if we get playoff 2, we get a bunch of extra games of utility. So Charleroi are right on the bubble at the moment, and I really hope I think not losing this weekend is really, really important. So although it's an away fixture, I don't necessarily think they'll keep a clean sheet, but I think Kofi could rack up some solid AA. And he's sort of the foundation. He's facilitating the side, because I think where I'm going to be able to sort of push myself into the prizes is elsewhere. I didn't have a great week last week, and I ended up being 10 points off the prizes in Cap 270 Super Rare. So I'm hoping with a better captain choice. Last week I captained Swiderski. He scored, but his AA wasn't great. I think he's got another chance of scoring this weekend at home to the Rapids. I think that's a great fixture. Giuliano's been in great form since coming back from injury. Leandro Morales has got a wonderful fixture at home to Belgrano. But the one that really stands out for me is Romans. Romans can really, really deliver when it comes to AA. And this weekend he is, albeit away, but away against Excelsior. So Roman's had a tough run of fixtures recently, which means his L5 is lower than his L15. But I think this weekend he could grab a decisive. I think if he gets a decisive, he normally goes 70, 80 plus, because he has good solid AA. He takes sets. He's also good on the ball. And I think my rule with 270 is always like, do I think a captain can get in the region of around 80 points? Because if they can, it's kind of game over, because you've got that 1.5 times multiplier. But I honestly think this weekend, this team has a really, really solid chance, and I would love to see this team deliver me a super rare prize. So we're on the topic of super rare teams. Let's have a quick look at 240. So 240, Andre Hansen, great L15. I'm really glad that I picked him up before the increased, the announcement of the increased Super Rare threshold, because I don't think you're getting any starting goalkeeper for 0.5 at the moment. So he's, really, really a nice value pick for me. He's already grabbed me one threshold last week, so he's, sort of a quarter of the way to paying off his investment, which I think is a really, really solid. I don't expect them to keep a clean sheet this weekend. They've got a really, really tough fixture away. Where I'm sort of looking is Jesper Darland. He's got a really good fixture at home. I really like to see him exceed his cap score. Fausto Vera as well. Lovely pickup. I don't know how I managed this, but I managed to grab him the other week for around 0.2 ETH, which is just an absolute bargain for a super rare. He's playing in midfield now at Corinthians. What's going to sort of make him more important within that side is Renato Augusto is out with a long-term injury, so it means that Vera is sort of a more important in that midfield. I think more of the possession will go through him. If we look at round rotation, they had a cup game in midweek, so Corinthians is sort of on my radar because they play in Copa de Libertadores in 364, but Vera was rested for the start of the cup game. He came on in the second half with players like Roger Gudez, and if you look at the sort of selection, it really suggests that he is a starter and he's sort of being held back for that weekend. So I think the ones that I'm really looking to exceed the cap score are Darland and Vera. Kim Dae-won just keeps on racking up AA. He's been like putting up 20-point AA games, but he's not grabbed a decisive. I really hope that this can be the weekend at home to Incheon, because if he grabs a decisive, he could go 90 points plus. Like he's really, really got the potential to go massive with his scores. Higuchi was rotated last week, and Atlas were trash when he wasn't on the pitch. He came off the bench and racked up like 20 points AA in the second half. So I think he's going to be back in the side because he is quite important to the way they play. So yeah, I think this side decent. It's all relying on Hansen not conceding 3, to be honest, because I think it's a bit of a risk of that. So that's why I've not gone super, super strong in this team and chose to prioritize 270, because Hansen conceding 3 could be a real killer, but brings his L15 down for next week. So that's the beauty of playing these cap modes. Next up, what am I looking at? I am looking at All-Star Rare Pro. So the most disappointing thing for me in the last couple of weeks is Joseph Akumu. I signed when I saw Michael Nagshidi was going to China, and I've managed to waste his scores. He's put up 2 massive scores in the last couple of weeks, and unfortunately I had him in with Cecilia, who DMP'd 1 week, bit of a surprise DMP. Last week, Bacca Status played, but he had an absolute stinker. So it's been quite painful seeing a super rare go like 90 point plus in 2 games and you're not actually taking advantage of that. So I've really tried to go much safer with my picks here. I think Mechelen is a great fixture for Ghent this week, even though they are away, even though they are coming off the back of a tough midweek against West Ham. I just, Nardi plays the league games. Akumu, I don't see him being rotated because he's so important for them at the moment. So I think that's a really solid base to the team. My other super rare is Enzo Martinez, little bargain I picked up from Liga MX. He's come in and is playing in defense for Pachua after an injury to their starter. Great fixture this weekend against Atlas. Atlas struggling a bit at the moment. They've also come off the back of a midweek game against Philadelphia, so I think it's going to be a few tired legs. Might be a chance of Atlas rotation. I can see Enzo putting up a decent score this week. And then, where I'm really looking for my points are Jesus Ferreira, who last week, I'm so relieved about this because his scores really do fluctuate depending on whether he plays 10 or whether he plays at the 9. He was moved back to the 10 last week, and it really, really positively impacted his scores. So I'm hoping he stays there this week for a home match against RSL, because that means that he could go 80, 90 points in this game. If he does, I think I'm confident he gets a decisive against RSL at home, and this sort of new role where he's able to, sort of play a free role in behind the 9 is really, really important for his AA. Last but not least is Christian Espinoza, who's been another wonderful value pick that I grabbed a few weeks ago. He's incredibly important to San Jose. San Jose are looking so much better this season, particularly at home where they are really, really strong. Espinosa's on sets. He even, he had 2 penalties the other week. So, he really is one of the keys to this side, along with Monteiro. You've also got Abobasi there as well. So they're sort of building a fairly strong attack down there in San Jose. And I just think that this weekend it's just a really good fixture for him, and I can see him grabbing a decisive and a decent all-round score. So quite excited about this. All-Star tends to be a tournament that I do well in, but the last couple of weeks with a few surprise DMPs and uncharacteristic poor performances from players, I've not done well. So I really wanted to just get back to basics here and try and win some prizes in the tournaments that I like to prioritize. Next up is my Champ America Rare Pro side. So this one's a difficult one because Villalba was rotated last weekend and that completely killed me. He did play 90 minutes in midweek, and they do face Corinthians the coming week. So I've laid this down now to go with Lanzi and Villalba. Might change this very close to the deadline if any AAJ team news comes out beforehand. But the sort of idea here is that, I'm playing some pretty strong MLS cards. I love the Argentine defensive stack MLS midfield attackers because you just look at the way goals are scored in the leagues. Far more clean sheets in Argentina, far more goals in MLS. So I think that this has decent potential. Carlos Gil, it's a fairly difficult fixture away at Columbus, but I think it looks like Elo Room will be out again. I think that really does sway it in the favor of Gil potentially grabbing a decisive in this. Schulte is a more inexperienced goalkeeper, and I can really see there being goals in this game. I think both teams will attack, and I think it could be quite an exciting one to watch, and hopefully Gil's in amongst it grabbing a decisive. I've got Diego Rubio, who's now fit, away to Charlotte. Typically MLS sides perform a lot better at home, but Charlotte have been, say this quietly because I don't want to upset Trippin B. Charlotte have been trash this season. They've been really quite bad. And I think, again, this is going to be a game with goals at both ends. I hope to see Swiderski and Rubio on the score sheet in this one. So I'm quite excited for that. I also think, you've got to back St. Louis at home. They've been really solid this season. A difficult matchup last week for them against Seattle, but I think Lowen here at home, Cincinnati is a decent fixture for him. So I really do hope that he can also do well. What are we up next? So let's roll back. All-Star Rare. Savarino. Well. I left him out last week because I did not trust that he would play. I do not trust RSL's coach, and I do not trust MLS injury reports. So when you see personal reasons for him being out, you always wonder. I do remember what I'm sort of was weighing on my mind here is that David Ochoa was out for personal reasons for a while last season, and then he was never seen again. So I was like, okay, has Savarino fallen out with the coach because the coach is a bit of a moron? And, is it the case that the star player has criticized the tactics, which, is not unheard of in football? Savarino, he played. He absolutely smashed it, and he celebrated with the baby rocking motion. So I think putting 2 and 2 together, the reason Savarino didn't travel last week was because his wife was having a baby. So I wish that was known beforehand, because I would have loved to capitalize on that score last week. But it does give me faith that he is, back in the mix, and that there's not anything weird going on with RSL and their coach being stubborn, a stubborn dinosaur. Basically, I'm gonna go there. I really like. If I were to create a hate list, it's RSL's coach is going to be on there. So I'm feeling a bit more confident this week about Savarino. Armani, solid goalkeeper. River Plate have looked really good this season. They've kept a lot of clean sheets. I think there will be a lot of rotation this weekend for River, but I still expect Armani to play. Otamendi didn't play in midweek because he was suspended, so I think he's in. Wonderful fixture for Benfica, as tends to be in Portugal. They get loads of easy fixtures, so I think he's captain. Edson Alvarez as well. I think these two defenders here that are capable of going big on AA. I could see them both going 70 plus points this week just through AA. So I think I had to get them in a strong team. And then Douglas Luiz, who's a bit of a sleeper pick, actually. He does really well through AA in the Premier League. Last week, played him. He got like 5 tackles. AA is really solid. I think at home to Newcastle, he's going to be busy, and I can see him grabbing a load of AA as well. So this for me is like 3 AA munchers, and hopefully Savarino grabs a decisive and a bit of AA as well. I think, again, that Dallas RSL games, it's just, I've got attackers from both sides because I really do think it's another one where we could see both teams scoring. So quite excited to have a watch of those on Season Pass. So yeah, really looking forward to the MLS games this week. What have I got next? Well, this is one that I don't normally play. I have not played Champion Asia in as long as I can remember, but a couple of things. I had some decent Asia players. I've got Reese, I've got Cecilia, I've got Junimana, who's now back fit, and I was looking at it and I was like, okay, well, now that Bake has got in at Seoul and looks to be staying in after what was an absolutely incredible performance last week, I've got 3 Asian goalkeepers in Rare with Osako. What I didn't have is any Asian defenders, because Lee Han Bom is still injured, and I sold Eduardo because who knows what's going on. I can't actually trust him to play at Marinos, so I sold him out. What was interesting to me is Nicholas has put out on Twitter some very strong suggestions that the J League license is coming back, which will impact the prizes and also I think the demand in this region. At the moment, if you look at the price of some of the Asian cards, they're incredible for capped. They really are. There's so much value there, particularly in super rare. Like the rare to super rare multiples seem to operate on a different system when it comes to the Asian cards. I know there's challenges with the K League scoring. We obviously don't currently have the J League license, but it looks like that's coming back. But I can see renewed optimism when it comes to Asia, and I honestly think that this team could grab a prize. So, I've brought in Iraqi here, so I've got a nice Sunfresh stack. I think this week at home, not this week, they've got an away fixture against Yokohama. That's got a clean sheet written all over it. Yokohama have really not looked good at all. We've got Junimano, we've got Reese, both in really good form, taking set pieces, racking up a lot of AA, and the man Cecilia, a little bit of a risk, but I've heard rumors that he will be back this weekend. I'm feeling quite confident about him being back, so I'm going against the Sorare data community here, and I'm even going to captain him because I think at home to Guangzhou is a really good fixture, and I honestly think here, clean sheet at the back, I really can see Reece, Cecina, and Amana all grabbing goals. So for me, this is really a play to try and win a prize. It's also a play to unlock some of the cards I've got. The last thing I want to be doing is leaving a player like Reece in training. So, I've done that in previous weeks because I just didn't have a spot for him. So, I've got quite a lot of rare cards now, and with one fairly affordable addition to the side, I've unlocked another option for me. I've unlocked another place to play my cards, which I think is really important. And hopefully we'll see increased confidence in the Asia region, increased demand for the prizes, and a little bump in the prize allocation as well when J League comes back online. So yeah, really quite excited about this one. Last but not least is my Cap 240 rare side. So Coronel, where do I begin? New York Red Bulls are one of the most frustrating teams at this moment in time. They, along with Nashville, have by far and away the best expected goals against in the league. But they keep on letting in just one goal. And, Coronel's last 15 has been dragged down to 42. Like, it's really low. At some point, they have to stop giving away penalties. They have to stop letting in own goals, and they have to actually capitalize on the fact that they're actually quite solid defensively. They don't give up many chances, but they just seem to keep on letting one in. If that happens and they regress towards their expected goals number, then Coronel's going to go on a run of clean sheets, and he's going to be an absolute cap mode sleeper. Why do I think it could be this week? Well, they're at home, and they're at home against Houston Dynamo, who will be out without their key player, Hector Herrera. So it looks really quite good for New York Red Bulls this week. So I really, really hope that they can capitalize on it. Rolling Darland again, because he's got a really good fixture and he's a bit of a facilitator. Albert Gudmonsen has been just brilliant for me. He keeps on delivering in cap mode. A home fixture this week, really, really good one as well. They've got a really high chance of winning. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what he can do. And the last two that are playing here, it's a bit of a risk, but I wanted to go with them anyway, is the pairing from Monero. So we've got Zacaro and we've got Pedrinho. Pedrinho is a really, really interesting one, actually, because his price has stayed really, really low, despite taking a fairly prominent position within a really good team in Brazil. It's because there were thoughts that he would go back to Shakhtar. As of yesterday, there has been media coverage to suggest that Monero are working on making this a permanent deal. He was on loan to the end of June. Obviously, Shakhtar are not covered, so he would have been covered, gone back to being uncovered, which is why, obviously his price was where he was at. He only had limited utility, but it really does look like they are going to lock him in on a permanent. There's a risk here that they could be rotated, because they do have Copa Libertadores midweek. They did lose their opening game, so the midweek Libertadores is very, very important. But the fixture is so good, and I could even see these guys maybe starting coming off after 60 minutes. And if that's the case, I could see them both scoring really, really well. They're playing the newly promoted Vasco, and it's just a wonderful, wonderful fixture at home. Sorare data community are not as worried about rotation as I am. They've both got quite a high percentage of starting chances, but I just think there's two high risk, high reward picks here, and I think it's worth doing that. So that's why I've decided to go with them this week. Thank you so much. Drop some questions in the comments if you've got any thoughts. See you all next time.